All right, for you folks on the audio, we are rolling. Just doing some things behind the scenes. All right then. Welcome back to the Foxhole. AfterShoX 051, Season 2, Episode 19. Yeah, we're cooking through this. Your faithful host, Kid Harlan, up here, ice cold chilling like Kavicha Kvaratskhelia, watching the World Cup. Yeah, Senegal leading Belgium 1-0 after England's come from behind win earlier. Always thank the folks at Road, among others. Man, there's so many people to thank these days. Go Docs, Newer, Apple. Anyways, all good there. You want to be a part of this experience. We got some great guests coming up, booking more stuff by the minute. More details to come here shortly as far as that goes. Stay tuned. FTINFX at gmail.com. 541-525-0896. Leave a message. We would love to hear from you. Hold on a second here. Windy day. This is what happens when you're in the home studio. The doors want to rock. Because we're not going so fancy with some of the other stuff we've been working on lately. More stripped down today. Back to basics so I can get this out because the USA is playing later and I gotta get this out. So this is probably gonna come out during the game or something like that. So, anyways, it'll be slightly dated, but hopefully the message that we send here will still make sense. Let's talk World Cup and American exceptionalism. Yeah, that's right. I got to bring that up again. We'd like to beat that dead horse. The folks who, it's still soccer. I don't understand why people care. The fact that the world, biggest party in the world, but yeah, the American exceptionalists are always like, yeah, okay, I guess, but it's still not that great of a game. It's really boring. Yes, and baseball can be boring at times. Football, when it's a defensive statement, a stalemate. American football, that is. Yeah. Yeah. You just can't please certain people. But one of the things that has been well to see, Mexico with another convincing win last night, making the round of 16. You have to say, El Trey, they're making the most of their moment. I could do without the fans acting a fool and making all kinds of racket all night long, trying to disrupt Ecuador. I mean, come on now. Come on, y'all. We're past that. I don't know. I was talking with some gents who are going back and forth, of course, gringos, mind you, about the Puto chant, whether it's racist or sexist or whatever the hell it is, because you keep hearing that. But I think it's Puto fatigue at this point, and yeah, it makes reference, but just like move on to something else. Especially all the things that are happening in MLB in this particular month. Fair to say. But they're making the most of it, and very impressive. Obviously, tough to score on. Be really curious if the U.S. can do its thing, and somehow. Anyway, let's move on. Wow. Is it fair watching the French national team? I mean, we know anything can happen in this tournament, and probably will. But I will say, watching France, obviously I got a slight bias because I am a big PSG fan, so a lot of my boys are on this French national team, but Elise, obviously Mbappe, former PSG guy. Point being is when they're cooking, it's just not fair at times because there's so many gears and so many things they can do, especially when you see someone like Bradley Barcola, who when he's playing for PSG, right, he couldn't kick a ball into the Grand Canyon, but now he's posting goals in the World Cup. Go figure. Yeah, it's really fun. It's going to be interesting because this is Didier Deschamps' last hurrah. Anything can happen in this tournament, especially when things start getting mental and these guys get, locked inside of their heads. But I tell you, just watching them, and I've been watching a lot of these guys, when they play with their respective clubs, when these guys are cooking, man, it is a treat to watch. Not lying about that, yo. There's a flip side to all of this stuff, though, which is Lee. I was hanging out with Lee and Adam last night at the Cascade Aces. Probably will see them again today. Always brings up the stories. And in a tournament like this with 48 teams, there's 48 stories and more. But not all the stories end up happy or tales of inspiration. What am I talking about, Ken? Well, look at South Korea. I know South Korea well because they've got my man Sonny and my man King and Lee. Two guys that I watch on a regular basis. We know from the conversations I've had on all the sports platforms, that is, what the Asian influence here in American sports. And so there's high expectations. And, well, we've gotten a sense of it just being able to watch certain athletes from Japan and Korea over the last 20 years. And, boy, South Korea not making it to the knockout round. The public, not so happy. I mean, they tried to fly in incognito at some weird hour. There was a bunch of people there ready to give the skipper and the players the business. That's like going, damn. Well, people, American exceptionalists, talking about, it's just soccer. Yeah, I don't know about how many of you folks are waiting at the airport to get up in someone's boo-boo following a loss. Well, getting knocked out of, the world's biggest party. It's not just the loss, obviously. Yeah. The Netherlands. Another team expected to go very deep in this tournament. They going home. What does Mr. Corbin do? F this noise. I'm Audi 5000. Yeah. The flip side of things not going so well. I mean, there are certain squads, sure, it's happy. We're happy to be there. But then the case of like the Netherlands, South Korea, and Germany crashing out on penalties. Folks not too happy. That one guy who was making a name for himself, putting out social media content, forget what his name is, just part of the scenery. He deleted his account. He was getting trolled so hard after Germany was sent home. Go figure. I mean, friend of the show next door, Andy G. That's a great question. So, if you're planning for your team to make a deep run in this tournament, what do you do when they crash out unexpectedly? Do you hang around with your bitterness? Do you try to sell your room off, your tickets? Somebody tell me. FTINFX@gmail.com. I'd love to know what happens, or maybe I'll figure it out in the field. Maybe when I go out for the watch arounds today, maybe that's something I can look at. The big boys, too. I mean, I keep hearing all this nonsense about a certain women's basketball player and how big it is for her to really shine on the stage she should, and how important that is for the world of sports, in the sports world, I mean to say, and how ridiculous this is. As I've been saying on all the platforms, Did you see Harry Kane today? Have you seen what Mbappe, Messi, Dembouz, Mr. Haaland, it's insulting, and I see why the snobs get infuriated with this American exceptionalism, especially the part where you don't want to acknowledge these guys are some of the biggest stars on the planet. We got big stars in our own universe, and a lot of what we do in our universe dictates what happens in the world. But guess what? This is bigger than all of that. But you're all like, well, go wallow in your bitterness and in your arrogance and in your uppity, hoity-toity, whatever it is, if you're not enjoying this. That's all I can say, man. Seriously. Okay, lastly, the USA. That USA. The United States men's national team. Bosnia and Herzegovina. Today, 5 o'clock, the Bay. Lot at stake here. Been talking with all the peeps. Always a nuanced conversation when you bring up this particular bunch, right? You know, because a very divisive country when you have the rights that allow us to be a divisive country. And there's all kinds of interesting opinions when it comes to the men's national team. Now, I mean, if you're woke and you hate America, like I've already said, I ain't got time for you, okay? I'm not saying you shouldn't, because that's what's nice about this America. You can hate this country and not get your ass thrown in jail. But right now, you know, America 250 and the World Cup being here, you know, call me a sellout. Call me a weirdo for being all about my red, white, and blue. But that's just how I roll. That's how I've always rolled. Hey, I was there for the bicentennial in 1976. Man, I ain't here saying this country's perfect. You're never going to hear me say that. So the idea of people being kind of lukewarm about rooting for our national team in the world's biggest competition, it irritates me, but, you know, to each his own. Okay? Just because I'm belly who on it doesn't mean you have to be bully who on it. I hope that when we talk again, we're still playing and I still get to break out all the good World Cup gear. Always got to be a fashion statement, right? Okay, folks, we're off and running. We'll come back and we'll try something a little bit different momentarily. All right, welcome back to the Foxhole. Your faithful host, Ken Harlan here. Ice cold chilling like Kavicha Kvaratskhelia. Senegal has scored another goal. Ooh, Nelly. A Belgian team that many folks for most of this decade have had high hopes for. Another team possibly looking at an inglorious exit. Okay, where are we going now? Today being July 1st, a lot of milestones going on here. Talk about a few of them as this show goes on. One thing we know, a lot of new laws, and if you're a student loan borrower, rules that are going into effect today. All kinds of stuff's happening. But one thing that is kind of cool, also launching this day. Woohoo! The Pac is back. Yeah, baby. The Pac 12 officially launches today, meaning we in business now. Interesting. I've been chatting with a good friend of mine, friend of the show. He's got something cool. He's been keeping an eye on that stuff, and we're all trying to do, get ready for what this new Pac-12 is going to look like. I've been talking about it now here ever since when the Pac-2 formed. How this alters the landscape, I don't know, but more football to watch, especially without the Pac-12. I feel like we've been getting kind of gypped in the later hours, especially on the West Coast. So hopefully this new incarnation of Pac-12 After Dark provides us as many thrilling memories as the previous incarnation. I mean, you won't have the karma because you don't have that tradition associated with this conference in those schools. But as we've come to be, I don't know, as we're having to get accustomed to, just changes. Stuff changes all the time. It ain't the end of the world. And this is one of those changes I'm actually looking forward to see. I just was watching, all the schools like Fresno State proudly putting up their signage and things like that. I think that's really badass, and I'm looking forward to it. I've talked to a few people who, have a little skin in the game as far as this newly minted conference is concerned, or newly reconstituted conference is concerned. Yeah, this is gonna be fun summer leading into things, for sure. And Washington State, Oregon State, flowers, please. Give them their flowers for sticking through this. Going through some times where they were clearly at a disadvantage from a recruiting perspective because the fact that all they had was each other, it was really easy, especially in this cutthroat era, to be like, why you want to go there for? Who they play? They ain't playing for nothing. Now they might be playing for something. Yes, indeed. Another piece of this, jigsaw puzzle that's expanding and expanding as we get closer to the 2026 season. Another interesting thing that happened yesterday, I believe it was, Mr. Sorsby. That Mr. Sorsby. Yeah, I guess he is going to stand down, which I think is pretty cool. I do. Look, I'm sure there was some avenue, because we know Jeffrey Kussler, the Ben Crump of college litigation when it comes to athletics, would have found the path. I don't know how successful he would be at this juncture, but I like when somebody says, all right, at some point I gotta quit being a douche and prove that I'm likable, and for you all to trust me that I no longer have a gambling problem. Somebody being an adult for once. A reoccurring theme in this web series and my other podcast. This week, we are seeing some adult stuff from certain people. And yeah, it's kind of a little pain, like I've been saying all along. You do have to encounter a little pain for us to get to a better place. Excuse me. And the solution, as I've said many times as well, it isn't necessarily the best or pretty. And there is sometimes a pound or two or 3 or 4 or 5 of flesh that has to be extracted. But you know what? Sometimes life sucks. And if we can keep it moving and not get bogged down on things that are out of our control or dragging things on far too long in this particular case, like I said, flowers for you, Mr. Sorsby. Now, it's up to you to somehow convince the NFL you do have the skills to be worth the trouble. Well, I think If you have the skill set, as Marlo Stanfield said, that sounds like one of them good problems. You know, another lingering question to all of this: what does this really mean for campus? I don't know yet. The fact that the wind and the wind took the tumbleweeds with this story and kind of blew them, down the prairie a few states over for the moment. We still got to get into the ring and figure out how to stem the tide of lawsuits and all these mofos who think they can play forever. And if there's going to be a loophole, why not? Especially if they be bags of cash. Because that money is right. That money is right. It ain't going to be right. It already is right. And I want more of it. Which, as we've said many times, you can't blame somebody for wanting to roll that way. You just can't. Especially in this namby-pamby world where you're going to be given all kinds of opportunities because of whackball judges or very slick agents and lawyers who can figure out every nook and cranny to exploit. As long as they get their cut. Jeez. Okay, let me slip to this. I find it really interesting, and maybe that's just the convergence of so many things going on right now. And there are so many things going on right now for it being July 1st. Normally a quiet time of the year. All hell's been breaking loose just since we last talked. Aside from the little AfterShoX I snuck in there yesterday. But we'll get to all that in the next segment. This Mr. May, who left the Wolverines after winning a national championship this past spring to go be in the Metroplex, getting a chance to coach Cooper Flagg, Kyrie Irving, among others. Why did this become a non-story? I mean, gosh. I guess it's kind of like when Jimmy Johnson left Miami and it's picked to go to the Cowboys. That makes sense. But to go to the Mavericks, especially, I don't know. I get the parameters, and I've already laid that out in previous episodes. I'm more or less concerned, so I don't get off track here. Why did this story kind of die? Because you don't really see that, and it so speaks to this culture where I don't know if any coach that's worth the salt wants to put up with. I think if you're hungry and you're trying to make a name for yourself and show you've got the chops, you're willing to deal with the ulcers that come with dealing with the student athletes in this NIL transfer portal, aka the Wild Wild West on steroids era. It's perplexing to me that this story doesn't have any legs and nobody really wants it. Like, maybe that's the networks. But I think some of you people on your individual platforms who are following and actually that's where the best content is, stop talking about effing Caitlin Clark and start looking at this story more about why high-profile coaches in the college game are boogieing quicker than you can say Carl Lewis and Ben Johnson. I know that's kind of dated, but it's true. Another interesting one, the Manning legacy. I saw this thing, I don't know what publication, doesn't matter, just part of the scenery. What does is Archie Manning coming out and sort of scolding everybody for overhyping Arch Manning. And I gave this a thought because I'm like, well, damn, Archie. You all had quite a legacy going back to you, even though you didn't win anything. You were still very hard-nosed and well-respected. Great college career and NFL career. It is what it is. Different NFL back then. But your sons brought home some jewelry. And so when it comes to grandson, the fact that you already brought 4 Lombardis home or been a part of bringing 4 Lombardis home, of course there's going to be hype. You all are the first family. You're all even higher exalted than the Sanders. And that's saying a lot because people love them some Sanders. They love them some Sanders more than Colonel Harlan Sanders. So when we talk about royalty, so I don't know what you're getting your nose in a twist for, Archie, I guess is the problem I have. You all Bilva's legacy. You got the Manning cast of Monday Night Football and enough commercials to combine to maybe not overtake Shaq, but at least during the conversation in terms of whoring yourself out for every dollar that's offered to you, which we can't blame you for doing that. Man, I just think, yeah, okay, Archie, you're probably right, but what the hell did you all expect? In a year or two, it's probably going to be even worse. Okay, lastly, good news. And I think when it comes to women's college basketball, it's not a minute too soon. A Juju Watkins sighting. Welcome back, lady. Good to see you, girl. In fact, you're probably happy because the WNBA, which I will talk about here shortly, is so toxic. You probably want to see if you can sue for a few more years of school so you don't have to deal with that circus. But it's good for her to be back. And look, from what I'm hearing, looking stronger than ever. That is going to be a good show to watch. And also think a major shot in the arm for women's college basketball, which, as we pointed out on this platform, did not really move the needle in the 25-26 school year. All right, folks, when we return, we'll get the frying pan out and we'll make up some real good vittles. See you in a moment. Aye. Welcome back to the Foxhole. Okay, so we had to get an additional segment inserted in here. Not sure where I'm going to put it, but the fact that I went out, watched the United States men's national team pull off a very heroic feat, getting to the round of 16. It wasn't easy. Down a man, and they're losing my man, League Un, stalwart, Antonio Balgon, for the next round because of the red card. Many folks feel kind of harsh to give a red for that, but this is what happens in these type of competitions, especially when we're talking the beautiful game life. But nonetheless, definitely the biggest win for the United States men's national team in the century. As we've talked about many times before, and we spoke earlier. The moment of truth, or the road of Damascus moment for this particular squad. As this moth is so fun because we have the lights out. But nonetheless, this is good. They get to play a Belgium squad who, let's face it, should be on their way back home, but give them the fortitude and living up to what the potential of this particular squad has in the last decade or so. They showed that fortitude. And, I have to say, it was a tough day for the African squads, right? Senegal getting a pin and the 120, 121. You traveled all the way from there to have your heart broken like that. I mean, yeah, buyer beware. We always know that. That's never going to change when it comes to these big events, especially the biggest party on the world's biggest stage. All of these things we get. But yeah, it still has to be pretty stinging to go out that way. But nonetheless, we need to circle back to the United States men's national team. No, this is not a moment of redemption for them. We know this. But for the folks who stood by the squad, a lot of times when folks, especially given the success of the women, like, oh, I could rather root for them than those losers. Don't start walking with the BDE or the BCE if you haven't been riding with these guys for a while. Nobody's saying you shouldn't show your patriotism, which I hope you are. But we're just keeping it real and tight and clean up here in the Foxhole. I know I've been at times pretty apathetic as well, but nonetheless, I've always been in the boat rowing with these cats. And the indignation, contempt that the main sports world and obviously the soccer peanut galleries have had for this crew. And mind you, getting past Bosnia, down a man, losing a key man, moving forward. That's something to be said. I can't remember who just said this on ESPN FC. The previous squad would have folded their tent and urinated in the bed. But these guys, instead of giving us a moment where we can spend the next 4 years or so, or the next 2 years before how the windows go, Billy Aching, they still in play. And that's a beautiful thing. Let me see. I got rocking. I'm like rocking hard tonight. I got my World Cup Steely on. You probably can't see this in the camera. I should have. I'll wear it in one of these sets. But like I said, we're feeling it. A lot of work still to be done. This next matchup with Belgium, and we got a taste of this leading up to the World Cup. Belgium squad that has had high expectations for all of this decade and even some change as far as that is concerned. Why not us? Dare to dream. Isn't that what it's all about? All right. We listen to the podcast wherever it lands, but just know that I had to get this in to complete this episode. Keep an eye out for what's really going to go down because there's going to be so much to talk about in the season premiere of Foxhole and a Foxhole. So many things have happened, but with the USA winning and getting to the round of 16, we'll just take a pause and enjoy that. We'll see you in about 2 days if I don't do a trimmers in between. All right, keep it tight, keep it clean, peace. And you damn better avoid those bracelets. Red, white, and blue, y'all. Okay, welcome back to the Foxhole. Having some weird difficulties like we did. We were doing the Fox Trying on a Foxhole episode. Just crazy stuff. All of a sudden, the Gremlins are still here. Belgium has come back and scored 2 goals out of nowhere. It's 2-2. I believe we are in the 93rd minute, so we might be heading to extra time. Wow, I know everybody's trying to like contact me for stuff. Let's see here. Okay, a little discombobulated, but let's try this again. I think where we're at was a good season for real estate agents. Yeah, the NBA doing its best NFL impersonation as far as being way more relevant than it should be when it's not your season. Or being the belle of the ball when it shouldn't be your turn to be the belle of the ball. And clearly, I think if you saw the AfterShoX episode I dropped yesterday, yeah, pardon me here, I made a lot of reference about LeBron and his decision to take his talents elsewhere for the 26-27 season. But, expand on it a little bit more and talk about the Lakers and their own Emancipation Proclamation. I mean, maybe not as landmark as President Lincoln, freedom of slaves, with the real Emancipation Proclamation, but don't tell that to Laker fans. We're just having a little humor here, folks, so don't come at me for, oh my God, how could you take a historical moment of significance like that and equate it to a sports analogy? But it is per Laker Nation. It is like somebody went to the plantation and said, you Laker fans who have been angry and have been in intermission or in exile, you can go home now. You can go put the gear on. I made a point yesterday to put my jacket with the banners on it. I hadn't worn that in many, many moons since the COVID championship and said I wouldn't wear it again until he left. And as I said yesterday, I don't hate the guy. It's just time to move on. It's interesting, though, the LeBron sexuals who are waiting for his next address to figure out what kind of gear they have to buy next. Must be exhausting with all the uniform changes, but the good thing, at least for them, they haven't had, other than all the different unis the Lakers have with city editions and all this other stuff. But now you got to go out and buy yourself some more gear. Yeah, I've never seen somebody of this magnitude, especially with the Lakers. When they left, people were doing a jig, which speaks volume for somebody who's easily in the top 15, if not top 10 players of all time. Doesn't matter, Laker Nation. Can we buy a round for the house? Is what I keep hearing. And you know me, I'm a Laker fan, so I'm keeping it real here. Keeping it real, keeping it clean, keeping it tight. But people be happy. I don't know what LeBron's motivation is to want to continue to play, get more empty calorie records that don't mean anything without any more rings. Because hell, you can do that and put everything out, in inner space where nobody's going to catch you. But that's still not going to change the people's minds who say you ain't the king. And even if you get 5 and catch Kobe, Magic, Kareem, Duncan, it ain't going to matter to people. And if you get 6, which isn't happening, even if you hook up with Chef Curry, or something weird happens where you go someplace like Portland, you ain't winning 2 more rings. Not at this age. If you win 1, it'll elevate you going somewhere else, especially knowing you'll be an integral part. Anyway. Kawhi going back to Toronto. What the hell is that all about? I mean, it makes sense. I guess. Clearly the Inuit crypt experience, it is what it is. it is what it is when it comes to a stint with the Clippers, that other team in LA. Crazy to go through all these permutations and still ain't put one on the board to what the Lakers have done. You know me, I just can't stand the Clippers, so. But I'm really perplexed by this move. But then again, if you're Toronto, hey, our one shining moment happened when he was the face of our franchise. Even if it took some unfortunate incidents to Mr. Clay and Mr. KD to make that happen, he got the jewelry in Toronto, so I could see that. And Toronto, and Kawhi, being Kawhi, who definitely dances to his own drum beat, this is completely in line with what I would expect from him at this point. My question is, do you want to be in the Kawhi business? But maybe you do, especially if you make a deal with him. It's like, hey, I'll show up when you need me to. I don't know. Ja to Portland. Boy, this is a real interesting one, isn't it? I'm not so sure what to make of that. This owner, TD, the whole thing with the Moda Center, we've been talking about that for the past couple of weeks. Maybe he watched the Netflix documentary and said, hey, I kind of like this bad boy thing. Let me add, a piece. Let me see if I can't bring back the late 90s and the early 2000s. Get me a Kobe stopper up in here. I don't know, man. I mean, obviously, a lot of people feel this is Ja's last chance at redemption. I mean, I wonder with the roster that they're putting together in Portland, even though I still am scratching my head about letting Diago Splitter walk to Chicago. And that's this guy who does look like he's going to have a good product on the floor for years to come. Obviously. I mean, Ja and Dame Dalahala in your backcourt. Scoot. So, yeah, this is a very intriguing story out of nowhere. I don't know if it plays good or bad when it comes to the Trailblazers. But you got to give them something. A team that hasn't really moved the needle in recent times. This is definitely going to put some eyeballs on the Rose Garden, the Moda Center. Of course, trying to get the public to pony up, boy, I don't know how that's going to play. I just don't. But we're here for it all, and we're here to comment, and we will be commenting. Okay. The Queens of the Court. Boy, oh boy. Are we having another crazy week with them? This whole thing with Alyssa Thompson and Caitlin Clark. The cult against the world. The angry rank and file against Caitlin and all of her followers. More talk about death threats. You're lying. You're just out for clicks. Once again, being the most despicable league on the planet. Like the dog that you can't keep from pooping all over your white carpet and people come over and you're embarrassed. This is the WNBA. I mean, it's got to the point where a lot of the stuff I like to watch that helps me build my talking points for these shows, it's almost unwatchable because they're talking crazy. All this weird static that comes with this league, it plays into every stereotype that someone like a Coach JB who says, hey, woman, go get me a sandwich because you're all crazy. Everything you're seeing, and this is not like, I'm not being a misogynist, I'm not being chauvinist, I'm more commenting on what I see when it comes to the psych ward that this damn league and its fans and the people who, whatever agenda. I mean, I saw Jason Whitlock talking with Maurice of Keep Division today, and how nuanced their conversation is, Well, you can't say enough already. Who cares? Because this whole thing with Caitlin Clark, a combination of being persecuted, and another dose of her being really entitled, and her fans having unrealistic expectations and demands, and a very competitive stage that everybody wants their share. Everybody wants to be known for their contributions. And yes, this whole hetero versus alphabet mafia, it's real. To what extent, I don't know, and I don't think the people who are commenting for clicks and building their brand know either. But to say that it isn't there, as Clay Davis would say, shit, it's real. And that craziness that comes along with it, well, you know. All right, folks, I've got a lot more to say about this on Fox Trading the Foxhole at the end of this week. When we come back, we will get you some parting shots and some probable salty takes. See you momentarily. All right, welcome back to the Foxhole. We're in extra time. Belgium and Senegal knotted at 2. Boy, that's going to be crazy. So let me get through this so I can actually take a scoop or two of that in before I get all ready to go on the U.S. men's national team adventure. So where are we going here? Okay, remember earlier I was talking about the adults in the room finally stepping up, and sometimes it involves pain. And if you've been following the Fox Trading and the Foxhole podcast and AfterShoX now, you know what I'm going to say about the Supreme Court's ruling yesterday. You know, basically, what we've been saying all along was probably going to happen, and not everybody was going to be happy. And we could have saved ourselves a lot of headache had the adults stepped up earlier. Now, say what you will about the current makeup of the Supreme Court. Whatevs. I do know there are a lot of people out there who have been uneasy with how this has been playing out in terms of biological women versus, you know, whatever you want to call it, competing against their girls. And where you used to be a man biologically, and what did I say years ago? And now people are saying, well, no, we need to create an open division. I'm like, where were you when I was bringing this up back in 2020, 2021? And then that was going to be the only way. Because at one point we had certain people who were narcissistic enough and said, hey, I can't be dominant as a man. Let me go on this side so I can feed my ego. That's a small percentage. I do not think that is, the overwhelming number of folks. But nonetheless, you had crap like that going when I started talking, and then this whole thing started spiraling out of control. And I said the adults need to get in here, create something where people who want to compete and not be about the political theater that comes with this topic, you actually still want to compete, then we can find a way for you to compete. Because we're still going to probably be wrangling over this over the next decade or so, if not longer. As Butchie said in the war, this ain't over. This ain't over. But for now, there might be a pathway where we can have some sanity. A little pain to get there when these things happen. Wow. That was a hard one. Not really. Okay. Then we've got this Tyrion Arnold guy. I kind of mentioned him last week. been talking a little bit about the Carmelo Anthony thing down in Frisco, Texas. And, you know, especially with like this Arnold guy and like hearing Saint Nick, all the stuff he did for him, vouching for him and his wife, creating a blind side basically. And I was sitting there wondering, especially with this whole attempt to make Carmelo Anthony a victim and to sort of make him into like this symbol for injustice. And I'm hearing a similar thing about, this Arnold kid who Nick Saban wrote all this stuff up, he's really a good kid. If these guys are such good kids, why is Carmelo Anthony stabbing somebody? Why is Terry and Arnold thinking he's in the wire running with the Barksdale or Stanfield Cruz? And like going one step further and truly trying to be a criminal mastermind, but being a bunglehead instead. And I was thinking, what are we doing? Have we lost touch with any sense of reality? It's like, people were contemplating, like, well, Nick Saban will probably scold him when it's away from the camera. I'm like, he should have distanced himself right from the beginning. And then I think the connection he has with Henry Ruggs, I'm like, how is that working out? I'm not saying these guys shouldn't be Father Flanagan, giving people from whatever bad circumstances they've been raised in, but crap, when you decide to like take every good thing you've had and just leave a big dump in the corner, what am I supposed to say or think when it comes to that? Jeez. Yeah, we'll see how this plays out over the summer. Okay, let me move on and see if I can get more light-hearted as we move through the parting shots and probable salty takes. There's been a lot of salt, and this is going to be in between. Adam Peters. Yeah, I've got the burgundy and gold on. I'm looking at you, bro. Year 3. You're the whiz kid. Year 1 was great. Year 2, not so much. And in year 3, we have this Brandon Ayuk madness circling you, which you really haven't publicly come out and distanced yourself from. Now, you haven't really said anything that would lead us to think him and, when I say him, as in Brandon Ayuk, reuniting with his crush, Jaden Daniels, like, oh, I gotta have me some JD5. That's the only thing. I mean, this guy is setting money on fire, going on social media, saying all kinds of crazy, stupid stuff. And you want to bring this into a culture, because you guys are always talking about the culture, in a locker room, to a franchise after 3 decades of being a waste treatment facility. You want to bring somebody in here when you're trying to build something special? I hope not. Because I agree with what's his face, the Rooster, DC radio personality, sad to say, like, hey, I have to like really look at you and not think you're competent if you go forward with a guy like this who's behaving, basically setting every bridge that's in his eyesight on fire, and you haven't distanced yourself? I don't know, man. Okay, it is July 1st, which means it's Bobby Bonilla Day. That money right. That money always right on July 1st. And what's always interesting is, it's always worth, around in the news cycle when it's Bobby Bo Day. We get that. Hell yeah, we do. The thing that really cracks me up, though, about Bobby Bo Day is where we are, with the Dodgers and all that deferred money, this big CBA battle that's about to happen, which I think where I'm going with this is we got to have a battle royale. I don't think teams want a future of having a lot of Bobby Bonillas around where you're paying somebody through 2066. But what it does tell me, though, because there's a blueprint for success to this fight for a new CBA is truly going to be a battle royale. And right now, I don't see how there isn't a extended work stoppage. I gotta think there could never get close. I can see what the owners are really throwing in there, and I like the idea of trying to get rid of prop peps and things like that. A lot of cool stuff, but I think when it comes to the cap and taking away the deferred money and all that other stuff, I don't see the MLBPA just rolling over and saying, yeah, okay, we cool with this. Boy, this is going to be a very interesting war if they don't get things settled before it gets to that. Stay tuned for that. Okay, lastly, the Foxhole out on the road. As I told you, I'm going to go probably watch USA and Bosnia later. Last night I went and saw Mexico and their big win over Ecuador. But I'm really digging the local flavor as far as going to watch parties. You know that in the past I thought it was kind of apathetic, but I can say here locally in the Eugene Springfield Metro, the little slivers I've been able to experience, I have completely enjoyed myself to the hilt. Absolutely to the hilt. It's been total fun. You know, last night with all my Cascade Aces buddies who are part of a bigger thing with the Timbers, but you know, me being an LAFC fan, as long as I don't get too crazy with my gear, they accept me. Stumbled over to a big El Trey gathering at a bar around the corner. Such a madhouse. I didn't even bother going in and trying to get a cerveza. I think I liked what I seen on campus. You know, mixture of our people, the Sporting Cascades folks, and some of the campus folks still around for the summer. As somebody said, the beautiful people. And they're showing out for this. And so, yeah, I do really appreciate being able to take this in. And I'm sure that whether you're there at one of these sites, at the match, or the, what do they call it, fan fun zones. As I keep speaking about, people are having a great time. And the negatives that you would think would be dominating the conversation, they aren't. Imagine that. In this world where people cannot wait to get to their darn keyboards and spout off about something that, for the most part, this is a very positive experience for a lot of people. I think that is really friggin' cool. Don't you? Yeah. Okay. Let me see. Is there anything else we've got here? We're in extra time, so yeah. Like I said, I'm hoping to get this out before the USA game starts. If not, I apologize, but I had a hiccup, so I'm not. I may have to go do a little bit of editing, and I don't know if I have enough time to get my stuff together so I can make some arrangements. But nonetheless, when it's out there, it'll still be relevant. Keep an eye out for Fox Dragon of Foxhole season 11 premiere. I've got some guests booked for the scene for July, so I'm hoping that July is going to be active. Some of the folks who were going to be coming on in June, they're too busy with the Oregon Country Fair coming up. So if you live in Eugene, you know you got to let people do their thing for Fair Family. But yeah, if you want to be a part of this experience, please, I'd love to have you. FTINFX@gmail.com. 541-525-0896. Leave a message. You know, all that good stuff. As usual, stay safe, stay sane. You know, avoid those darn bracelets, because we don't want anybody having to call the bail bondsman. Crooked as a dog's hind leg. Enjoy some good food, good drinks with people that matter. The rest of this knockout round as we get to the round of 16. And of course, all the wackiness that's going on in the NBA. But like I said, I'll have more to say about all of this probably in like 2 days or so because I'm doing this Wednesday afternoon. So Friday afternoon, maybe Saturday, as we kind of figure out in this new format we're building out what days work. But it's going to be like a 3 day interval. All right, I've talked long enough. Peace, y'all. We will see you soon in the Foxhole.